just want to remind everyone that celebration of being Filipino does not end here today. We got to carry that everywhere we go. We got to carry that throughout the year.
Spark, Connect, and Empower is a movement born in San Francisco to engender love and passion for Filipino heritage and culture among Filipino Americans. In the process, connecting them and empowering them as individuals and collectively as a community.
Pinoy ako! Proud ako! Pinoy ako! Proud ako! Pinoy ako! Proud ako! Pinoy ako! Proud ako! Spark, connect, empower, Pinoy 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 ako! Listen, Phil, I'm to the next generation. Millennials, you are the future of the nation. Embrace your past, be proud of who you are. Spark, ignite your pride and curiosity. Connect with one another and with your ancestry. Empower, be the forefront of the community. Be proud of who you are. Pinay ako, taas noo, pagmamalaki ko sa buong mundo. Pinoy ako, I'm proud ako. I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud to be a Pinoy. Pinoy ako, proud ako. Be proud of your race and your identity. Be vanguards of your culture and heritage you'll see. Come and belong, stand tall, then you'll know it's fun, oh so fun to be a Filipino. But diverse, we are many but united. Be proud, shout it out and show we're not divided. Behold the Filipino spirit that's in you. Pinay ako, taas noo, pagmamalaki ko sa buong mundo. Pinoy ako, at proud ako. I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud to be a Pinoy. Pinoy ako, proud ako. All it takes is a spark to connect and empower nation building beyond the borders. Come and celebrate who we are. Pinay ako, taas noo, pagmamalaki ko sa buong mundo. Pinoy ako, at proud ako. I'm proud to be who I am. Yes! Pinay ako, taas noo, pagmamalaki ko sa buong mundo. Pinoy ako, at proud ako. I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud to be a Pinoy. I'm proud to be who I am. Yes, I'm proud. I'm proud to be who I am. So proud. I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud to be a Pinoy. Pinoy ako! Proud ako!
Magandang umaga po sa inyong mga kababayan, especially here in San Francisco, but we know we also have listeners from other parts of the world because we're in the social media. So good morning or good evening or good afternoon to all of you. Welcome ho uli dito sa ating programang Tanong ni CONGEN, where all of your questions, we will also try to ask them doon po sa ating mga guest and ating mga consul. No? So for today po, we're very grateful that we have a very, not just a specialist on immigration, but somebody who's also a community leader, you know, for a long time and who continues to persevere in that function as well. So, and today she will discuss the topic about immigration to the United States and our situation, especially for those who are trying to get into the US or nandito na sa US and they are in some situations in terms of their immigration or their stay. So yung ating pong imbitadong panauhin ngayon will try to shed light. And for today po, we're very grateful to Attorney Lou Tancinco, who's a co-alumni of very, very proud po that she's from UP and is happily married here with two children, two, tama, Lou?
Daughters, yeah.
Daughters, right, who are already grown ups. I saw them grow up, no? And,
Yes, they grew so fast.
we're very happy for you on that. So, wala pong iba ang ating panauhin si Attorney Lou Tancinco. Good morning, Lou.
Good morning, CONGEN. It's really a privilege to be invited as one of your guests. This is indeed a great public service, and I hope na through my guesting here, I'll be able somehow to participate.
Oh yes, of course. Very humble pa rin to si Lou. But, that's one of her qualities talaga, no? And that makes her great, actually. And so, but as I mentioned earlier, Attorney Tancinco, Lou, can I call you Lou?
Yes, please.
She's a friend also.
Yeah, we're colleagues.
So, not to be disrespectful, but so Lou is not just an immigration lawyer, actually, and she's doing something as an advocate for the veterans, and for that reason alone, we're most grateful. Maybe Lou, can you tell us something about that? Itong this other passion of yours on the veterans.
Well, yes, my other life aside from being an immigration attorney is that I'm a veteran advocate, and that I refer to the Filipino World War II veterans. I practically grew my career with them. I saw them when they first came here in 1990 because of the Immigration Act. And so from then on, we actually formed this organization, the Veterans Equity Center in 1999, with only 3 goals, which is to serve, advocate, and honor our Filipino World War II veterans. And that was like more than 20 years ago.
Wow.
And it had evolved from fighting to equity, to getting a compensation for them, the 15,000 to 9,000. Now we're into family reunification, the Filipino Veterans Parole Program, and now there's a bigger challenge. USCIS announced their intent to terminate again this Filipino World War II parole program. So we're actually advocating that they do not do that they actually not rescind the FWVP. At the same time, we are actually fighting to get legislation there for a family reunification for the families of veterans to be exempt from the quota or numerical limitation. There's still a lot of working to do, CONGEN, but we have a good community who are very supportive and they understand the cause.
Oh, no, thank you for what you're doing. I recall there was one incident before, and I saw you, and I can feel your passion and your heart, no? In fact, I think you were very sad in that get-together because you were telling me ang dami ng mga veterans na you helped before and you no longer see them. No? So
it's very painful. I didn't expect it to be that way when I started advocating for the veterans. You know, a lot of Filipinos are related to veterans. Either their father or grandfathers are Filipino World War II veterans. But to me, I've been like a daughter, granddaughter to thousands of them, and I've met them one-on-one. So when they go to the next stage, it's really painful and not being able to get them what they deserved. But I'm glad that they're now giving out those congressional gold medal, which is also one of the accomplishments of delegations.
I know you worked very hard and collaborated with so many people to have this congressional gold medal also realized. No?
Yes.
And obviously, you were part of that advocacy.
Yeah,
So,
me and our executive director, si Luis
see,
Antonio.
that's true, very true.
Formerly Philippine rep under General Antonio. Antonio.
I and I'm a witness, and I saw that passion. I saw that big heart of yours up close and personal, and I
Thank
feel what you feel in terms of those veterans that you dealt with on a personal level, because I know that you used to visit them in the equity center, in their houses,
Yes,
talking to
we did
them
that.
personally, no?
We
Oh,
did them. We have interactions with them all these 20 years.
yeah.
So as long as there is one veteran standing, CONGEN, our commitment stands to help
Yeah,
and advocate for them.
yeah, and we're most grateful to you for all the good works that you do for our veterans. And I know there's no way of stopping you here. Not even your husband can stop you. So nobody will try to give
It's
us.
coming
So
from here. Yeah.
yeah, I know the times that you spent with these veterans is a time less for your husband and daughter. But I think you have a family who understands you in terms of these sacrificing your time and your effort as well. So,
Yes.
so, so thank you, Lou. So, but this is just to give you an overview of the person that Attorney Lou Tancinco is, and that should be a good backgrounder for all of us as we ask Attorney Tancinco in terms of the immigration issues that our kababayans are now facing. No? So, and in that respect, Attorney Lou, if I may ask you to give us a sort of a feel in terms of what sort of immigration situations do Filipinos find themselves in, especially during this pandemic. Can you give us some overview on that?
Yeah, I've listed a few. During this pandemic, a lot of our Filipino immigrants have been affected. And I refer not just to those who are in unlawful status. I refer to both legal immigrants, to those Filipinos who are U.S. citizens, and even those who are in unlawful status. I refer to present immigrants and future immigrants. There are so many concerns. Like, for example, number one, I think we're going to tackle it later on. A lot of Filipinos want to maintain their green cards, but they're stuck in Manila. What can they do? So that's a question that had always come, and we try our best to explain that there is a way to preserve that. And then we have also non-immigrants, those who were just visiting, say, in January or February. They were afforded 6 months only, and then they're still here. They couldn't get a flight. So what could they do? So these are part of the concerns. Of course, we have a lot of students, international students. So when all these policies came out, they are very concerned on what to do. Where are they going to stay? You know, it had affected if they're going to be removed from this country. So I'm glad they retracted from that policy. Not to mention, of course, the DACA. We have thousands of Filipino dreamers who have taken advantage of the DACA. Now they have been in limbo for a long time, and later on we will explain what the impact of the Supreme Court decision is on the DACA. And I don't think they deserve to be in this situation. And the information that we're going to give out later on, hopefully, would help out. And lastly, second to the last, because I've listed it now, there is this public charge issue that they have exempted the application of the restrictive effect if they try to get treatment or testing for COVID. And then the one that I'm saying, CONGEN, right now are our healthcare, our frontliners, our healthcare workers. I'm not just referring to the registered nurses. I'm referring also to the skilled nursing facility caregivers or the other caregivers who are just stuck in the homes, and some of them, well, a lot of them are in unlawful status. And I don't think during this pandemic, that they deserve to be in that situation. So we'd like to also inform our viewers to give as much support to our healthcare workers.
Wow. Thank you very much, Lou. So I think while all of us are focused on the COVID, but we actually have friends, kababayans who are in these various situations that you describe, and and so not only do they have to deal with the pandemic per se, which is bad by itself, but they also have at the same time to deal with their situation that you have described, and the pandemic has not erased all those issues. If at all, it has increased the anxiety, I suppose, in terms of those issues. So maybe we'll have to clarify some of the things by which they could help themselves in terms of those situations in the midst of this pandemic. So in that regard, Lou, if I may, because there are some questions, maybe I can pose this question to you related to U.S. immigration in terms of the situation you just described. So there's one question here. A Filipino holding a tourist visa, B1, B2, who has been here since the onset of the pandemic in February, and he fears that he might overstay here in the US. It is also difficult to go back to the Philippines in terms of the availability of flights. What does he have to do to avoid overstaying in the United States? Can he extend? Is that possible? Extend his stay here in some way or another, Lou?
Yes, those who are on a tourist visa, CONGEN, we know that there is, at some point, there's an expiration date. So for the situation which you just described, my first advice is to make sure that they should not allow their visa to expire without filing for an extension. So the answer to your question is yes. Yes, they can file for an extension, but they have to do it before it expires, and that USCIS should receive their application for extension before the expiration. They can download the form from the USCIS.gov website and get the form I-539. File it with the filing fee. Just fill up the forms, and the most important thing are two things. Number one is you have to put a reason why you're asking for an extension. You have to show proof that you cannot get a flight back because of the travel bans, or because of the situation in the Philippines, or because no airline is going to take you. And then second, the most important thing to remember is you have to show that during the extended period that you're in, you're supposed to show proof that you can support yourself. So you show your bank account, or maybe an affidavit of support from a relative, making sure that you're not just going to access some public benefits to support yourself. So that's my answer.
Thank you, Lou. If I can ask some points on what you mentioned. Bukas po ba yung USCIS for people to file an extension, or do they have to do this by mail?
The filing of the application for extension is not personal in person. You have to mail it, and the instructions are also there at the USCIS.gov. And of course, if they need assistance, they can always seek assistance from their preferred legal counsel also. And the I-539 may be filed online as well, but they have to go through the website.
Okay. Yun naman po pala, by mail and online. Do they have to, let's say, paano kaya po yun? Yung reply sa kanila, approval or disapproval, hindi dumating on the day of the expiration of their visa. Wala pa rin silang natatanggap na sagot. Do they have to force themselves to fly, or should they be comfortable that they already filed?
I think the last one, as long as you file before the expiration, kahit wala pa kayong nare-receive na approval notice, your status, yung pagbilang ng falling out of status will stop at the time of you file. For example, ngayon, August 2, August 3, mag-expire. And so, mag-file ka ng July. You have proof that you mailed it, right? So, wala ka pang natatanggap sa USCIS as long as you're holding on to the proof that you filed before. Kahit na after August 3, you'll be okay.
Okay. So at least that's a word of comfort at least, no. So they should not lose sleep kung wala pa silang approval na natatanggap, no.
Yes.
But let's say in principle, Lou, natanggap nila, if it's approval after August 1, then no problem, no?
No problem.
They will probably just say how long you can stay. Pero paano ko, for one reason or another, naging disapproval po, but after your visa has expired, ano po yung dapat nilang gawin?
Yeah, kung for some reason, worst case is it gets denied, you are actually bound to leave or depart the U.S. And there's going to be reasonable time, usually within 30 days. That's reasonable from date of the denial. And that will not have any adverse consequence on your future applications.
Okay. Good to know kasi yung mga flights nga, tulad ng nabanggit nyo, Lou, no, medyo hindi pa marami yung flights and it's not easy to book a flight right now. So, okay.
Also, before we leave the topic, there are also some clients, CONGEN, that hindi lang flights ang nagiging problema nila. They have underlying illness that will prevent them from flying. That one has to be documented as well. Mariris nila yung health nila if they fly. That one is a good reason.
Okay. So definitely yung health issue, no?
Yeah.
Okay. For people who are applying for extension, can they cite as a reason yung current lockdown sa Philippines? Would that be a good reason?
Well, yes, that's also a good reason, but it does not hold as much water as a medical illness or yung lack of flight. Kasi yung lockdown sa Philippines, syempre, hindi ka naman talaga papasukin, di ba? But if you're just trying to avoid yung quarantine of 14 days, you show some financial or health reason that you cannot go through that at the moment, I think that's a good reason.
Okay, thank you, Lou. Going back to that health reason, assuming and it's a serious health reason and it came to a point that you had to seek medical help, but wala kang financial resources to do that and you availed of the certain medical facilities with government help, will that impact on your status or in the future in terms of, let's say, hindi naman yan, but in the future you're thinking of becoming a permanent resident, will that aspect of getting assistance from the federal government, will that impact on your future plans?
Well, that is a very timely question, CONGEN. Just like last week, the District Court of New York came out with a decision saying that those who are present in the United States, and whether you're in unlawful status, non-immigrant status, or immigrant status, should not be prevented from availing of medical health care, either for testing or treatment of COVID-19. Because they availed of that, the public charge issue will not apply to them during this pandemic crisis. Ang reason behind that is if there are a lot of people who are not being treated, the more it becomes dangerous for us if they go out spreading that disease. So that's the reason behind that decision. So sa mga kababayan natin, kapag po meron kayong nararamdaman at kung ang pagkakataon lang ninyong magpagamot ay through a government-funded healthcare facility, pumunta na po kayo. And it will not have any legal consequence that will affect your future applications.
Okay. I think that's a very, very welcoming news, no?
Yes.
And you said it's a court decision. Are we safe to assume, therefore, yun na yung policy ng current government in terms of the public charge issue is deemed modified by this court decision?
Yeah, actually, even before the decision, the district court decision last week, Department of Homeland Security came out last April, came out with a policy saying that if they avail of medical treatment because of this pandemic, it will not affect the future applications for immigrant and non-immigrant visas. Kaya lang that policy, syempre coming from DHS din, medyo natatakot din yung mga taong mag-avail. So para sa akin, CONGEN, I think yung lalo na sa mga kababayan natin, they should just focus on staying healthy right now. And we'll deal with your immigration later on, knowing that there is this policy and this district court decision. I hope that we will overcome those challenges. But in the meantime, if they need to avail of medical treatment, please do so.
I think that's a very good practical advice, no? Sabi nga nila, aanhin mo pa yung immigration kung wala ka na.
You have to be healthy for the people you're petitioning, or para makuha mo eventually yung green card mo, you have to be present.
That's true. I think that's the first responsibility you would have. But just to clarify, Lou, yung etong bagong policy, it has to be related to the pandemic situation. So if it's not related, or if it happened before the pandemic, then yung general policy on public charge na you cannot avail. Or
naman na last year nag-avail ka, hindi syempre hindi affected. Affected sila sa public charge. They're doing this like special provisions, exemption to special provisions, so that for the safety of the public also.
Okay. So, klaro po yan, mga kababayan, from Attorney Lou. Lou, can I move to the next question? Meron isa dito, for Filipinos with pending green card application with USCIS, and then they are caught in the lockdown, no, in the Philippines. So they're now in the Philippines because of the pandemic, and I suppose may mga requirements for you to maintain that green cards, no? What would you advise to these people who are in that situation, stuck in the Philippines, but really urgently need to go back because mag-expire na siguro yung kanilang green card, may mga certain days that they have to be away, no? So what do you advise them, Lou? I heard the US Embassy in Manila is still closed. Paano yun?
Lalo na ngayon, nag-modified yata.
Okay.
Sumusunod lang ang embassy sa situation sa Pilipinas. So if they order MCQ, lalong hindi they're supposed to open July 31 in phases. But then we heard again that there is this quarantine, enhanced quarantine. So I'm not sure if they will still be, but they're still closed right now. So ito going back to your question, CONGEN, in regards to the green card holders na medyo naipit na sila sa Pilipinas, let's divide them into two categories. Number one is those who have been there for more than 6 months but less than 1 year. At saka yung second category, may na silang 1 year doon. What will happen to them in view of this pandemic? Now, for those who have been there for more than 6 months, well, they can still enter the US kapag may available flight na. Now, dahil more than 6 months na kayo, they're actually saying that the CBP will ask at the port of entry what happened, why you were not able. You should be able to show proof that you actually were there because there were no flights, ganon. Although it's general knowledge is because of the pandemic, but don't take that for granted. Bring your documentation also. Or if you have an underlying illness, you can travel. I think those with 6 to less than 1 year, wala naman masyadong problema. Now, what's the problem is for those who have been here for more than, those who have been in Manila or in the Philippines for more than 1 year, makukuha kaya yung green card nila pagdating nila dito sa port of entry, pagpasok nila sa United States? Well, the rule here is like, after 1 year, your green card is deemed abandoned unless you get a special visa again, a returning resident visa from the US Embassy. Sasabihin mo, paano kami pupunta doon? Sarado nga. Or nilolok mo yata kami, sasabihin sa akin. No, if you cannot get a returning resident visa, then you can enter the US and explain why you are not able to come back after 1 year. Now, kung ginagamit mo lang naman ang pandemic para makalusot, that's a different story. It has to be related to the pandemic. And you have to have proof that you have not really abandoned your green card. For example, you have been paying taxes here, kahit na 1 year ka na doon. You have a resident here, bank account, your state IDs are here. You just bring all those documents to prove that you have not abandoned your green card.
Ako.
So yun ang aking advice. Ngayon, pag matagal na, 4 years, 5 years ka ng green card, nasa Pilipinas ka pa rin, and then you're saying, kasi dahil sa pandemic, hindi ako nakarating, that's a different story. So, well, we have to, kasi kilala ko yung mga ibang kliyente, no? But they just follow the rule, and it would always be best to seek legal advice, CONGEN, not necessarily from me, but from your trusted legal attorney, legal counsel, para naman mabigyan sila, because each case is different.
That's true. But for those people who really overdid it, yung mga nasa 3 years katay, may pag-asa ba sila?
Kaya na sila uli, di ba? Magpa-petition na lang sila, or its case is different again. We might be able to find a way, but not related to pandemic.
Okay, that's great. At least there's still other ways, but they have to consult, obviously, because
Yes.
as you mentioned, each case would be very different. So, okay, mapunta ako dito sa something that's very important, yung sa DACA. There's a question here, Lou. How are Filipino immigrants affected by the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn the administration's move to terminate the deferred action on childhood arrivals, and recent reports that the administration would continue with its blocking of the DACA and applications? Ito po yung tanong. But maybe before you answer that question, Lou, can I ask you a question? Ano ba talaga itong DACA, and who are the affected people with this DACA? Can you give us a background?
Sure. Ito yung ang DACA ho stands for Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals. So who are going to benefit from that are actually the young immigrants who were brought here by their parents when they were very young and now are out of status. Ang tawag po natin sa kanila, mga dreamers. Di ba? So in 2001 or 2000, for many years already, there has been a legislation that is being introduced na hindi pumapasa. So, ang nangyari noong 2012 to help these young immigrants get status and a pathway to citizenship. Pero dahil hindi pumapasa, in 2012, under President Obama, nag-issue siya ng executive order and created this deferred action for childhood arrival. What it means is that for young immigrants who were here when they were minors and who were here in 2007 and were then below 15 years old, were from among the many eligibility requirements, and will be able to get employment authorization and protection from removal. So 2012 yun. So they will give them employment card for 2 years each year renewable. Now, fast forward 2017, we had a change in administration. September 2017, sabi ni Trump, hindi maganda yung DACA na yan. Let's rescind it. So imagine, there were 800,000 DACA who would have benefited from that program na naapektuhan, including our Filipino dreamers. No? So what happened is a lot of lawsuits were filed in that regard, questioning the validity of the termination by President Trump. Also, as a result, instead na full rescission ang nangyari, as part of the compromise is that, okay, hindi namin i-rescind yung mga may pending na from 2012 to 2017. But you are not allowed to apply for new application. Kung first-time applicant ka pala, hindi pwede. So that has been the situation from 2017 to now, 2020. June 18, 2020, Supreme Court decision. Lumabas ang decision, sabi, mali ka, Trump. You're not supposed to rescind it that way. So the rescission was invalidated. So di ba pag na-rescind siya, ibig sabihin the DACA program is still valid from 2012. So then new applications should be accepted. Ano nangyari po? Ang nangyari, and last week, they said that even new applications were not going to accept.
Oh.
So that's the DHS pronouncement last week, which is like contrary and in defiance of the Supreme Court decision and also the decision of the District Court of Maryland asking the DHS to accept initial applications. So sa tanong about DACA, CONGEN, we have thousands of young immigrants, as I said, who have been put in limbo. And they do not deserve this. What they deserve is their pathway to citizenship. They're practically like American citizens already without the benefit of the documents. So yun ang impact ngayon sa mga DACA.
Wow. So,
Which is which is sad.
Yeah, nga. Sad you have a court decision and then the policy. No? Okay. But what do you advise for our DACA applicants? What they have to do in the context of this apparent contradiction between the court and the policy?
Yeah. Again, they are put in the middle, di ba? Ano kaya susunod? So for those initial DACA applicants, I would say that since DHS made the pronouncement that they're not going to accept and they will reject your application, you should be aware of that. No one will stop you from applying, but you have to know that it will be rejected until there is a change in legislation. Now, for those who already have employment authorization and have their DACA since 2012 up to now, they can continue to renew these DACA applications. And also they cannot apply for advanced parole. They cannot leave the country. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
okay, those are very important information. And as you said earlier, if they have some anxieties and questions more, what's important is they consult, no? And find for them to be able to be guided as to what exactly to do. So, okay, thank you on that, Attorney Lou. No? Meron mong isang question dito. Please give our Filipinos who are processing their immigration papers some advice on what to be on the lookout for during this pandemic. Meron mo ba silang dapat na isipin to be alert? What should they remember? What should they prepare for that is relevant for their immigration processes? Do you have an advice on that, Attorney Lou?
Yeah. Well, I think by now you should be aware of two presidential proclamations that were issued in April and June. And both presidential proclamations suspended the entry of some immigrants to the country. And affected, of course, are those applying for visas at the U.S. Embassy, which includes family-based petitions and non-immigrant visa petitions. So they should be aware that right now, even if there's an approved petition, U.S. Embassy in Manila, I would prefer because we're talking about our Filipino visa applicants, are not entertaining any type of interview. So kahit na na-approve for preference category. So I'm referring to adult children of U.S. citizen, yung mga adult children and spouses and minors of green card holders, adult married children of U.S. citizens and their siblings. Exempted are spouses and minors of U.S. citizens and minor children of U.S. citizens. Now, for non-immigrant visas, the June proclamation said bawal ang H-1B, L-1, and the J visa, which I say that if the client or the applicant does not yet have those visas at the time of proclamation in June, they cannot now apply and enter the United States. Important thing to remember that these proclamations only apply to those who are still outside the United States. Now, if it happens that they're still in the US and they can still apply for change of status, extension, they can still apply for adjustment of status, even if they fall under the preference category. Now, what is important to know is that the government agencies here in the US are open. Natanong mo kanina, CONGEN, di ba? Bukas ba ang USCIS? Bukas ang Department of Homeland Security. Actually, the CBP officers, of course, active sila sa airports. Ang USCIS are still adjudicating applications, petitions. They even issue requests for further evidence. They do naturalization. Pwede pa rin mag-oath taking for naturalization. They still do that. So even with these proclamations, I would suggest to those listening or watching us right now, if you have some visa applications, you can still apply. If you have a National Visa Center email or document, i-continue na lang po to have it processed with this government agency. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin. Para pagdating ng pagkakataon na ma-lift na itong suspension, you are ready or your relatives are ready. So yun ang aking suggestion sa mga
okay. And that's a good suggestion, Lou, no? But there's one question here. Yung po bang mga B1, B2 holders, meron na sila nun, but they're in Manila, can they still use that visa to enter? And will they be allowed to enter?
Yes, actually the proclamation says those who are not in possession of the visa yet are covered by this suspension. But that means those who already have the visitor's visa, pwede lang makapasok dito. And I've had clients who were able to come here on a visitor's visa. Siyempre, there is going to be a strict scrutiny on where they have been at the port of entry. Tatanungin nila. So, but if they've been in countries na covered ng travel ban ng US, baka hindi sila papasukin. Pero kung galing naman sila ng Manila, wala nang ibang lugar. Philippines is not one of the countries covered by Trump's travel ban.
Okay. Yes.
Basta may flight. Basta may flight. Yun ang importante. Papasok sila. Basta meron.
Thank you. Thank you, Lou. But earlier, Lou, you mentioned about J1 as part of those na medyo different. Can you what are the options ng mga J1 visa holders whose visas have expired and they have no means to return to the Philippines? Can they still apply for visa extension? Can they apply also for change in visa status, let's say for another visa category? Is this possible, Lou?
Yeah, mga J1, marami tayong mga kababayan on J1, either they're interns or they're part of a summer program or they're teachers, mga au pairs. So in view of that question, CONGEN, we have to distinguish a J1 from B1. B1 is the visitor, J1 is the exchange visitor. On J1, they come here without an approved petition, but they have sponsors. Okay, from na accredited by the Department of States. Ang sponsor nila ang nag-i-issue ng DS 2019. Now, if they're here, they're already expiring, mag-expire ng visa nila. My suggestion is they communicate their concern with their sponsor or yung tinatawag nilang responsible officer ng Department of State. And then the Department of yung kanilang sponsor ang mag-i-issue ng DS2019 and magbibigay ng support document why they need an extension. And then file that with the form I-539 with the reason. Now, you cannot extend your J1 if the program already is in its maximum period. If that happens, they can change their status to that of a visitor's visa, or they can change to a student visa. And if they have, they're still not covered by the cap by next year, they can file for an H-1B. But at any rate, it's important to communicate with their sponsor because USCIS will look at their DS2019. They have to do all these changes before their visa expires. So,
Thank you. But in that instant, will it matter if the visa is already expired or your stay nila expired or not yet expired? Will it make a difference?
Yes. Any kind of non-immigrant, whether student, pwedeng visitor's visa or J1, they have to file before its expiration. Parang yun ang taning mo. It's always the deadline. You have to be conscious. You have to work fast to file something before it expires. Now, if you file after expiration, walang mangyayari. Madideny yan. You'll fall out of status. And
So
you have to be aware if you made that conscious decision to stay here after expiration without doing anything, to extend or to change. You are on your own lookout, and you have to understand what your rights are, which you have also.
Okay, that's right. You're right. It doesn't mean wala na silang rights. No, there are still, and maybe in the future we will ask you again to
Sure.
tell us those rights. No, and
Know your rights.
yeah, that's which is very important also for them to understand also and learn and know. So. And we will definitely knock on your door again.
Thank you. Yeah.
But if I can jump to you mentioned yung K1 naman as a
Yeah.
Paano ho yun? What happens to those K1 spouse visas that are pending? How does the current pandemic affect our kababayans who are in that situation with K1 visas that are still being processed?
Yeah, if you remember, I mentioned the two presidential proclamations suspending entry of some immigrants and non-immigrants. Fortunately enough, ang K1 po or fiancé hindi kasama sa mga mababar. These are fiancés of U.S. citizens because they're like in the hybrid of spouse and fiancé. They're like not treated differently from spouses of U.S. citizen. So my advice is for those who have approved fiancé visa petitions, they can still get an interview with the U.S. Embassy when the U.S. Embassy opens. And then for those who haven't filed yet and you're a U.S. citizen, you want to file fiancé visa, you can still do that with the U.S. CIS.
Okay, that's very good. Yeah. Thank you for that, Attorney Lou. Actually, that was meant to be the last question, pero may pahabol dito and I must have created anxiety because of earlier I asked you out of status na their rights. I meant to have you again come back and explain, no? Pero I don't want those people who listen to that have the anxiety, parang suspension sagot. If I may, Attorney Lou, can you give us some snippets or general overview what those rights are so that yung mga tagapakinig natin who may be in this situation will have some peace of mind as well?
Yeah, I'd like to speak not just to those who were not able to file for their extension or change of status because for some reason they have some financial constraints or may sitwasyon sila, they were sick, they were not able to do it. And also I'd like to also address those who have fallen through the cracks because of this broken immigration system. So for those who are in unlawful status right now, I'd like to say that you have a constitutional rights to due process. And when I say you have constitutional rights to due process, especially for those who have been here for more than 2 years, if ICE comes knocking on your door, you have to be aware that you are not bound to open that door. You have the right to a legal counsel. And unless that notice is actually signed by a judge, you're not bound to follow that or follow the ICE. And then second is like you have the right to a hearing also. Most of those who are in unlawful status, with a few exceptions, of course. When I say with a few exceptions, those already who are done with the court, meron na silang final order of removal, hindi kasama yun. But those who haven't been through an immigration judge, you have the right to a hearing. And the most important, we always hear, not just in a criminal case context, you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to reveal, but you should contact the Philippine Consulate and contact CONGEN. Because you're still a Filipino, they will provide and guide you on what. Because, di ba, CONGEN, o ikaw naman. Maybe it will go to that. Okay ba yung segue ko sa'yo? Para naman hindi masyado seryoso.
Yes,
those who are incarcerated na kababayan, CONGEN's office, they are very consistent in visiting and providing them with assistance.
Yes, very true.
They always contact their attorneys na gusto nila.
But
okay.
that's a very good practical advice. When in doubt, no, there will always be institutions, and obviously the consulate is there when everything else fail. You come to us. We have our emergency number, our telephone number, but obviously we work on this in collaboration with advocates as well, like Attorney Lu, no, Tancinco. So it's always about partnership, and when you have partners, it makes the load or the burden less heavy. And so for our kababayan, so in whatever situations you are, it's always good to know your rights, as Attorney Lu mentioned, and it's always good to explore and always remind ourselves of those rights, because who knows, we will need those knowledge, those information when the day comes. No? You also have to know telephone numbers. You also have to know institutions, but of course you also have advocates and lawyers like Attorney Lu who you can approach, no? Because as mentioned earlier, every situation is unique, and there are people that you have trust and confidence to tell everything. And when you're in that situation, it's better that you tell everything, especially with a lawyer, because this is the only way lawyers, advocates like Lu can really help you. If you don't tell everything, it might complicate the situation further. So, but at any rate, thank you for that, Lu. And of course, Lu has always been a friend and a collaborator of the consulate, and we're very grateful for that.
Thank you for the opportunity, CONGEN.
So thank you again, Lu, and thank you for your time and your knowledge and your intelligence, sharing them with our people, and continue to be safe, Lu, and my warmest to Ray and your two beloved daughters, and we'll continue to see you. Hopefully, when the pandemic is, we'll have a get together with the community, and
there's a vaccine.
We pray for that vaccine to come as soon as possible, and we pray for all people who are in the front lines, especially. So thank you very much, Lu, and we're very grateful to this fighting Pinay. Never give up Pinay that we have, when we're so proud of you. So mga kababayan, maraming salamat po sa inyong ulit. Thank you, Lu. Any parting message, Lu?
Yes, first, CONGEN, I'd like to thank you so much for this opportunity. I actually, in any way, in any medium, way to outreach to our community, to give valuable information. I really take advantage of that opportunity, and you've opened the door for me to share. And I hope what we have actually discussed will be helpful to them. And again, as what I said to you today, let's first focus on survival. Let's stay healthy muna. And while at the same time taking care of things here, the moment our health is affected, yun na po yun. So para sa akin, stay well and healthy. At maraming salamat.
Well said, and very important. So on that note, we wish to thank all of our listeners, viewers. Thank you to Lou. And as I said, a fighting Pinay, well-fitting. And so I will end our program now by saying, Pinay ako, taas noo, Pinoy ako, proud ako. Mabuhay po kayo.
Maraming beses na kitang nilayasan, iniwanan at ibang pinuntahan. Parang babaeng ang hirap talagang malimutan. Ikaw lamang ang aking laging pinabalikan. Manila, I keep coming back to Manila. Simply
Our online celebration commemorates the 122nd anniversary of the proclamation of Philippine independence. I know, Dom, we are still in a pandemic and times are really tough right now, but that's not stopping us from celebrating our Filipino history, our culture, and our pride. And you know, tonight is the night to also honor the men and women who have really sacrificed so much amid the pandemic, our frontliners.
hinahanap kita Manila, ang ingay mong kay sarap sa tenga. Mga
Mabuhay!
naglilipa,
And offer a toast.
mga babae mong nagagandahan. Take me back in your arms, Manila, and promise me you'll never let go. Promise me you'll never let go. Manila, Manila, I keep coming back to Manila. Simply ain't no place like Manila. Manila, I'm coming home.
That was a phenomenal performance.
Good morning there in Manila.
Hi, Sir Henry. Kamusta po kayo? We are okay here, and we enjoyed the reception, and then we also want to congratulate you for your celebration of the 122nd Philippine Independence Day anniversary.
And promise me you'll never let go. Promise me you'll never.
Ryan Kayabyab and the Ryan Kayabyab Singers, thank you very much.
Now, to cap our program, we wish to leave you with a video prepared by the Philippine Consulate General in San Francisco to honor Filipino frontliners all over the world.
Mabuhay po kayo.
From the bottom of our hearts, thank you very much po, and have a good night or have a good morning. Thank you. Good night. Pinoy ako, proud ako.
Babaeng ang hirap talagang malimutan.